Hello and welcome to today's video. So, a couple months ago in March of this year, I was at Grand Comic-Con. And at Grand Comic-Con, I met an artist by the name of Matt Brundage. So I hope I'm saying that last name right, Matt. I apologize if I am not. But Matt was looking at my work that I'd done with Warbler. And he asked if I had tried out Thibra. And I said, no, I had never even heard of the product. And the way it was explained to me, it was like a thermoplastic similar to Warbler, but it had a little bit, or a lower melting point. So Matt was kind enough to give me a sample of Thibra. So in today's video, we're going to try it out, see how it compares to Warbler, and see if I can sculpt a little monster using Thibra. Before I get started with sculpting with the Thibra, I wanted to do just a quick comparison between the two, without sculpting with them, just with the raw material. So I have Thibra here on the left and Warbler on the right. So right away, I noticed the Thibra is smoother. So, depending on what I was going to make, that's definitely beneficial. I know you can make Warbler smooth by putting multiple coats of primer and sanding it, but that definitely creates a lot more work. The other thing I've noticed is it looks like the Thibra is a little bit thicker. I don't know how well that is visible here, but it's very slight if it is. But the Warbler is pretty easy to flex. Thibra maybe just a little harder to flex. But like I said, according to Matt, this has a lower temperature or melting point. So when I do use the heat gun on it, I'm going to do it just at the low setting, just because I don't want to go too fast and ruin something, or just make it harder to work with. The other thing I wanted to do was just do kind of a cut test. And the Warblers, you can cut through it without heating it up, but it is a little tough to cut through. The Thibra, it's tough to cut through, but it seems a little smoother, and I'm wondering if, if you kind of look at them, if there's more stuff mixed in with the Warbler. I don't know the science behind thermoplastics, where the Thibra seems more consistent. So I'm wondering if that kind of makes it rougher, if that makes sense. The other thing, I don't know if I can find a little light here. So that definitely shows through quite a bit. So it's a little more translucent. And that, you can still see it through there. I think it's a little brighter. Yeah, definitely a little brighter. Mine's maybe not a good enough piece or flashlight to test it with. Yeah, that's pretty bright. Yeah, a little brighter with the Warbler, definitely. Alright, so let me get this stuff out of the way. I'll get my cardboard down and some wax paper so it doesn't stick to the cardboard. And I'll get started with making a monster out of the Thibra. To start things off, I'm going to go ahead and shape a couple of foil balls. And I'm going to use these for the body and the head of the monster. And then I'll go ahead and heat up the Thibra. Again, like I said, I'm just using the lowest setting on my heat gun. It has two settings. So I'm using the lower one. And then I'll just wrap it around. I did right away notice doing that first piece on there that it picked up a lot of the detail of the foil. So I went ahead and smoothed out the foil a little bit more and then put it on there. And I'm not necessarily going for a certain look for this monster. I just wanted to go ahead and try out the Thibra and see how it, worked, and how it worked putting it over the foil. So the foil definitely is a good base for it and kind of forces it to form a certain way. And you notice here that even heating it up over the foil when it's sealed, it like expands out. And what I noticed when I heated up the Thibra quite a bit, that it felt like, stretching out a chewed piece of gum. So it's very stretchy, but it forms really nice over stuff. So on the head, I went ahead and did an indention to do an eye for it. And so I just heated up the Thibra, this other piece of Thibra. And then it works really well to cut off the excess with some scissors. And then smooth it out. It smooths out really nicely compared to like Warbler. It takes a lot more effort to kind of smooth it so you don't see those seam lines. Now, normally on a sculpture like this, I would make like the extra pieces like teeth or claws or horns or whatever. I'd make those out of clay and attach them. But for this little guy, I wanted to do him completely out of Thibra. So I wanted to have a little tooth sticking out of his mouth. So I went ahead and sculpted that out of a small piece of Thibra. And then I would just heat up the head and attach that tooth. And then the other thing I wanted to do, since I want to put like a lip in the bottom part of his jaw over it, I built up that area next to the tooth because I knew this Thibra that would go over the front, would follow that curves and kind of push that out. And then I just used the ball tools to add a little bit of detail to it. Now the next thing I want to do is go ahead and make his ears. So I just kind of doubled it up because I figured one sheet of Thibra wouldn't be thick enough. And I cut a couple triangles and then heated those up and attached it. And it works really well to smooth those into the head piece there. And then for the second one, I noticed I kind of overheated it, so I had to do a little more shaping with it. But it worked out, and if you heat it up just a little bit, you can still manipulate it. Just from the experience of doing this one monster, you got to be really careful not to overheat it or it just becomes stretchy and really droopy. So you can let it, cool some before you do more work with it. So for the eye here, I wanted to roll a ball in, but it was still pretty warm, and you can see here it attached instantly to that socket, but it wasn't quite in place how I wanted it to. So I went ahead and stopped and touched up some details first, but I went ahead and resculpted the ball for the eye and then let that cool this time so I could set it in to see if it's, where I wanted it. And that's kind of something I learned pretty quickly with working with this stuff, is let the pieces cool and then heat up one of them, usually the bigger piece, and then attach the smaller. And the reason why I say that is because you don't want to distort the shape of what you're adding. I mean, it kind of depends on what it is, but like when I added the eye, I didn't want to change that ball shape. And then for this, I wanted to add a little monster butt to him. So I just added some Thibra to the backside and then kind of sculpted it. And then I heated up the top and added the head. Now for the monster's limbs, I went ahead and shaped out some foil and then wrapped the foil with the Thibra. Normally when I do clay on a monster this size, I would just use it clay solid, and like his head and his body would have the foil inside, but the arms and the legs wouldn't. But I knew I would use a lot more Thibra, and it gets so soft that I thought it'd be better to wrap it around the foil and then heat up the ends and then push it into the body. And so, like I said, I seem to have better results if I just heat up one of the Thibra surfaces instead of both. So I kind of heat up whatever I'm not worried about changing the shape of a little bit. And so for the arms and the legs, I kind of molded them around the body when I heated them up, so it worked out really well. So heating that, up just one side of it, like, the arm instead of the body, it still does really well of bonding to itself. So I was really happy with that, and I really do like this medium a lot. With his arms and legs attached, I can go ahead and start working on the fingers. And so I just made some little balls just straight out of Thibra. I wasn't going to worry about foil on something this small. And so I just heated up enough, and I wanted to do them about the same size, so I used about the same amount of material. And then I was just going to do 3 on each hand. And so once those balls were cooled, I would just heat up the ends of his hands, of his arms, and push those in. That way I didn't distort the fingers that I had made. Now for his feet, which are a little bit bigger, I did just use Thibra on that again, and then shape those how I wanted to, and then I could go ahead and work on the toes. I went ahead and there's one area on his face I noticed I wanted to fix, so I did that before moving on to finishing that. And that gave a chance for those feet to cool while I just kind of touched up a few other areas on him. Now I noticed a little bit of a gap on the inside of his legs, so I kind of filled that in with some Thibra, and it worked really well to heat that up and squish that in there and then smooth it out. And, and if there's a place you can't get to on the fingers, go ahead and use a ball tool. Now I went ahead and heated up the ends of his legs and attached those feet. And then go ahead and, I touched up some more detail. I'm always going back, noticing little things I want to change. So with his toes, I did the same thing as the fingers, but I did do 2 pieces of a little bit bigger to do that, so he has kind of a big toe look, and then 2 smaller toes. And then I just heated up the top of the feet and smushed those in there and added a little more detail there. So I think that pretty much does it for him. Just a few minor little touch-ups, and then we'll look at the finished product. And here is my little monster made out of Thibra. So being my first project with Thibra, I'm pretty happy with how this little guy turned out. It's one of those things where, kind of like clay sculptures, I could spend a lot more time on adding more detail and fine-tuning it. But then you get into the point where you overdo it and you mess up what you have. And so I didn't want to do that with this guy, especially since I wanted to get him done for this video. But so how I would compare it to Worbla overall, I really like it. That doesn't mean I'll use it exclusively. I'll still use Worbla for some of my projects. And it's really now dependent on what the project is. So how I decide what I'm going to use for my projects is, obviously if I want it to be something soft and, plush-like, I make it out of needle felt. If it's a smaller item, or if it's something that I don't want to paint, I'll make it out of clay because the clay is pre-colored. And then if it's something I want to do larger or more durable, or both, I will make it out of Worbla. Now, so Thibra is kind of a, fourth option or second option for those larger, more durable items, because this stuff's really seems durable. I mean, just like the Worbla, if not more so. But what I noticed about this is, it's a lot smoother, and I think it's a lot easier to sculpt on. So it really depends on, what I'm making. I've been really happy with a lot of the stuff. I wouldn't mind trying some of the projects I've done out of Worbla and do them out of Thibra to see if I like them better. Especially like my Godzilla monster, since I'm such a big fan of Godzilla, to try another version of him, but this time out of the Thibra, and see how he compares. But, there's other projects that I have in mind that I was going to do them out of Worbla, and I might try them now out of Thibra. So real quick, I wanted to go ahead and do a price comparison just from what I found online, because I have no idea. Like I said, Matt just gave me that, sheet to try out, so I don't even know what it costs. So I'm going to bring that up right now. So I was able to find Thibra and Worbla at dickblick.com, and you'll notice here, Thibra on the top, Worbla on the bottom, that the Thibra is actually cheaper for more material. So I was kind of surprised. I thought it might be the other way around, but Thibra is cheaper than Worbla, at least on dickblick.com. Alright, so that gives you a breakdown of the cost between the two. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Again, very special thanks to Matt. I'll put a link to his Instagram down below if you want to check out his artwork. He's an amazing artist, so I definitely recommend checking out what he does. So now I'm going to go ahead and paint this guy, And so on my next video, which will be Thursday, which is normally like a quick look or just a quick update, I'm going to do just a very quick video of painting this guy to see how that is, how that turns out, see how he, how the paint adheres to him and how it looks as a finished product. So be sure to check out Thursday's video and see how this guy looks all painted up. And remember, never stop creating. Bye!